Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today we're going to be doing a series on the MiSTer FPGA D10 Nano project, more specifically in this instance, the still work in progress Sega Saturn Core, because we've seen a lot of different core updates in the last few weeks that have been very small bug fixes or other little graphical glitches that are now improved, and I wanted to do a single game test here on one that everyone's been asking me to retest, and that is Guardian Heroes, because it's probably one of the top 5 games I've tested over almost now the last 2 years in Sega Saturn Core development, and it is absolutely insane just how far this core has come. Before we get too involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And I still remember the error of every single FMV freezing the core. You had to beat start like it owed you money to skip over everything so you could actually even try to get into the game. Obviously now that is completely resolved. And as far as the performance now on something like Guardian Heroes, if there's anything wrong with this game compared to original hardware, I have absolutely no idea what it would be, and you probably wouldn't either. And that's just absolutely a testament to just how far this core has come in the 2 years of active development. Every single sprite here, every single layer, every single effect just looks right to my eyes. And we've definitely checked this game a ton when the layering priority was incorrect, when there'd be glitches, when there would be freezes, and now you can sit down and just play Guardian Heroes from start to finish on MiSTer FPGA like you're playing a real Sega Saturn, and if there is any bug left in it, I don't know where I would find it. Obviously you have a lot more eyes than I do, I just have the one set, you have multiple thousands, so if you see anything at all in the capture that sticks out to you, leave me a comment down below and a time code so I know where to look, because even still people are going through all of these games looking for those stray pixels and submitting tickets to GitHub so SRG320 can go in and take a look at them, and he definitely goes through all of those GitHub tickets. So if there's any game that you're having issues with, I can't recommend enough popping over to the GitHub page and just making sure that there's not already an open ticket. If you don't see it, submitting it, because that is a lot of how the development process occurs here. But there's one thing about Guardian Heroes that no one can dispute. This is absolutely one of the best 2D Sega Saturn games of all time and one of the best beat-em-up games of all time. It is absolutely a classic, and it's a game that absolutely everyone should play in my opinion. And on the core, again, as it currently stands, it is probably my favorite way to play, because I do have this game in an original copy with my Saturn and an RGB cable coming out of the back end. But obviously this is HDMI quality, and it just looks absolutely outstanding, and that really is one of my favorite things about MiSTer. Yes, I can hook it up to my PVM and get that RGB out, but if I just want to sit at my living room TV on my OLED and play Sega Saturn games, I can play something like Guardian Heroes with that clean HDMI out all day long, and it is absolutely easy. This really does kind of make things just easier to play. And if you're like me and you only have limited time because you spend all of your spare time making videos like this, having that ease of use just 100% make things that much more fun. Now if I just want to play Guardian Heroes, I sit down, turn my MiSTer on, and within about 60 seconds I'm at the title screen playing the game like it was intended to be played, and that definitely makes a huge difference. And again, this game is just absolutely wild. All of the sprite scaling, the multiple layers, all of the story elements from start to finish, this is just absolutely a 10 out of 10 Hall of Fame first ballot classic, and it's so much fun to play on MiSTer, and I'm sure that's why everyone's been asking for a retest of this game specifically, because it is just one of those titles that everyone remembers if they've played it and loves. And it has such lush artwork, so much fun parallax scrolling, and just so much charm. You want that to come across one-to-one compared to real Sega Saturn hardware. And again, if there's anything wrong with this, I'm really having trouble spotting it whatsoever. The pseudo-transparencies are working well, the dithering, everything else you would expect to see in the game is here, and it's one of those things. This game technically does have transparencies, but also technically doesn't, because when you see a transparency, there's nothing behind it as far as sprites are concerned, so it's a little bit of visual trickery on the Sega Saturn front, but even that is being replicated like you would expect to see it on real hardware. And that is just, again, how far this core has come. This is one of the first games I tested on the series because I wanted to see if it would work, and even when we had terrible graphical corruption along with freezing, it was still amazing to see. And the sound quality, 10 out of 10 as well, with a great soundtrack. 45 seconds and I'll be right back with more. I mean, I can't say enough good about the soundtrack to Guardian Heroes. There's always absolutely hits when I listen to it, and honestly, it sounds absolutely incredible coming over MiSTer FPGA. That is the really nice thing. You don't just get the HDMI out on the video side, you also get digital audio out, and while I do think the Sega Saturn sounds really good, depending on the age of the capacitors inside, you might get a little bit of muffled audio in your hardware, so it is nice to have this from a preservation standpoint as well. It just 100% works, and again, as we move into different areas here, the explosion, all the text for the hits coming up, the heads-up display for your health, every single sprite layer, it just seems to be in the right place. And again, like I said, it's possible that there is a pixel here or there that might not be perfect, but you'd really have to pause the frame and try to find it. And of course, the ultimate goal is 100% one-to-one accuracy on real hardware, but honestly, if you're just doing the pixel peeping to try to find something, that to me is one-to-one. If you don't even notice you're playing something like MiSTer FPGA versus something like a real Sega Saturn, then that is the accuracy we strive for, because pretty much every single core ever made has some sort of mathematical rounding error in some section of it that would mean that it is not 100% perfect compared to original hardware. But pretty much every time that happens, it is only machine detectable, so really if a human can't perceive it, is it even a difference? You can tell me down below what you think, but for me personally, if a human can't tell, then that means it really doesn't exist. And again, as we go through more of Guardian Heroes here, there's just so many sprites on screen at once, so much going on, that screen shake effect when heavy enemies hit the ground. It is just absolutely wild from start to finish, and if you've somehow never played this game before, I cannot recommend it enough, because I know we have a lot of new MiSTer FPGA owners out there, people that have the MiSTer Pi, people that have the QM Tech clone. Right now, MiSTer's never been a better time to jump in, because you can get an entire triple stack for well under $200 and start joining the MiSTer FPGA party. And if you have bought a MiSTer recently, tell me down below which one you picked up, because I would be curious. I feel like 9 out of 10 times now I'm hearing MiSTer Pi, and I'm just so happy that the entire MiSTer ecosystem is growing, because for everything like Sega Saturn, SRG320 has a 3DO core coming soon, we have the Atari Jaguar developments, it really just is an amazing time to be part of this hobby. And the improvements that you see in Guardian Heroes are just again wild, because it's been so long since I've been doing previews for this game and for the Sega Saturn, and I remember when every single sprite was corrupted in this game, it ran about half speed and would freeze after 45 seconds, and even seeing that back in the day was just exciting, because you knew we would get there in the future with SRG320. The promise of a completed core that could play every single Sega Saturn game just like real hardware was off in the future, but we got there, and it is here now. And as we jump back into another area, everything here, from the frame rate to the controls, just feels incredible, and that is really the benefit of MiSTer FPGA. You're basically dealing with zero latency in the controls, especially if you're hardwired, and if you're on a PVM. It's basically the identical experience of playing on real hardware as far as the inputs are concerned, because of course you don't want any lag that's going to affect your gameplay, and you get nothing like that here whatsoever. Just a smooth, clean, playable Guardian Heroes, like if you put the disc in original hardware. One more soundtrack sample, because I can't stress enough how good the core sounds and how good this music is. 35 seconds and I'll be right back with more. There was just a tiny bit of crackle in that audio sample, but I did check my original Guardian Heroes disc, and I can get a little audio crackle out of that as well, so it might be something endemic to the game. You can make a comment down below and tell me what you think. Is the only thing in this entire video I was able to notice, and honestly, being a filmmaker who deals with visuals, not a sound engineer who deals with audio, I thought it was kind of interesting that the one fundamental difference I could kind of detect, or that may have been an issue, was that tiny bit of audio crackle, but maybe depending on how you were listening to it, you maybe didn't even hear it, because I do have studio headphones on for the audio balancing and audio editing portion of the video. But trust me when I say the Sega Saturn core, while not done yet, is so incredibly buttoned up. You can sit down and play Guardian Heroes from start to finish and ignore the fact that you're not playing on a real Sega Saturn, because it is every bit as good as real hardware, and it's one of the best Sega Saturn games of all time. The only wrong way to play this game is not to play it in the first place, and right now MiSTer FPGA is my favorite way to play the game. If you tell me down below if you ever played, I would be curious, but we are done. I'll have some more Saturn previews too, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.